Hey, vinyl community, Jeff here. Yeah, so I want to get onto this contest, which I'm still not 100% sure if the contest is going. It hasn't had a finalization or drawing for it yet. This is for Be Cool or Be Podcast Out. So the contest started actually 3 weeks ago, right at the time he entered my contest. And somehow I saw my contest entry, but this one came later and I missed it. So it's been running for about 3 weeks. And he was running the contest until he reached a certain subscriber rate. You have to watch the video to understand the number of the subscriber rate. But for all intents and purposes, he's reached that, and he was going to stop the contest at that point. But I've seen other people enter at the past day or two, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, whether or not it's still running or not. Whatever. So go check out his channel. The link will be below. Simple contest. He wants to see a total of 6 albums, 2 from each of 3-year points. 2 albums from when you were 6 years old, 2 albums when you were 16 years old, and 2 albums from when you were 26 years old. So for me, that's going to be 72, 82, and 92. So let's get into it. Now I try to dig a little deeper and not go for like the most popular albums, just, to show something else in the collection that maybe hasn't been seen as much. So anyway, we're going to start with 1972 Philip Upchurch. This is a guitar player, jazz. Found this in a thrift store. I was so thrilled only because I could tell from reading it that it was instrumental. I could tell from looking at it. It's a double record set. It's on the Blue Thumb label, and it was just in immaculate condition. And for $1, I could not pass it up. And I found this and another one of Philip Upchurch's albums, and they're great stuff. Just cool guitar, jazz type stuff. He does some cover tunes on here. Anyway, so yeah, obviously not an album I had when I was 6, nor knew anything about when I was 6, but I picked it up. That would have come out when I was 6. And of course, what of my collections is going to be without some fun Partridge Family in here. Partridge Family were very active in 1972. It was around the time the show came out. In 71, 72 is when they, and it was only 3 seasons, and most of the albums that they released came out between 71 and like 73, it seems like. There's like 3 or 4 albums in there. They released at least, I think, 2 in 1972. This is the Notebook. I went back and I realized that there's actually 2 Partridge Family albums on vinyl that I do not have. So that reminded me, I need to go get those. Shopping Bag and the Bulletin Board are the 2 that I do not have on vinyl. I'd have them all on CD. They were reissued on CD like in 2003, I think, and that's when I picked them all up. And then anyway, so 1972, this is one of the 1972 releases by the Partridge Family, and yeah, great stuff. I was trying to see if there's anything here that was really big, but looking through the eyes of, to me, who listens to them all the time, all the songs are big. Funny thing, I have all the seasons on DVD, and I mentioned this before. The last time I actually watched all the seasons on DVD was when my son was still alive. He liked the show, and he and I were binge watching it. So we're talking, at least 14 years ago. I hadn't really watched them since whatever. But anyway, so the other day, actually, at the time I made my last video and our internet went out. I was doing some yard work with the trees. I think might have had something to do with that. I don't know. Internet went out. I had the way I uploaded my last video was pretty odd. I had to make it on the computer, copy it back to my phone, and upload it through my phone to YouTube, which took like an hour and a half to upload with no Wi-Fi. We were without Wi-Fi for a good day. But anyway, so we had no streaming capabilities, nothing. So we pulled out DVDs to watch, and I jokingly said, hey, let's watch the Partridge Family. And my wife's like, okay. I hadn't seen that in years, and we pulled it out. And so we started watching the Partridge Family. We watched like the first 4 episodes this week. So anyway, internet's back, and we'll get to it eventually. Partridge Family, 1972, when I was 6 years old. 1982, okay, we'll start with something which you would expect, a little bit of a hard rock. One Vice at a Time. Crocus. There were a ton of great albums in 82, but I wanted to go with a little bit more obscure. Long Stick Goes Boom, big one. I remember my friend had this album before me, and we used to listen to this all the time. So we kind of cut our teeth on, One Vice at a Time and some of the earlier stuff. And then when Headhunter came out, that to me was like a high water mark. It was just like an album of perfection. If If you're not familiar with the earlier Crocus years, they're very reminiscent of an AC/DC, type Bon Scott era vocal stylings a little. So a lot of people compare them to that style, like of the early AC/DC. It's just great stuff. They later went on to not feel so much like that, in my opinion. 1982, Huey Lewis and the News. Picture this. This album was everywhere when it came out. We had already heard the first album, had already been familiar with it. They were all over MTV with the live concerts and stuff. Great stuff, it was some of the non-hard rock stuff that we listened to back in the day. And when this album came out, of course, it took off like a rocket. This was everywhere. This was the first album had some good stuff on it that we were fairly familiar with, but this album is when it Change of Heart, Tell Me a Little Lie, Working for a Living, Buzz, I love that song. But anyway, Do You Believe in Love? I mean, this is the album that had so many hits, and then it just got bigger and bigger from here on out. So definitely a pivotal album, 1982. Great stuff. Huey Lewis and the News. And then we get to 1992. I show this one only because I literally got this in about 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't planned on showing it, but this was a good reason to. DC Talk, Free at Last. DC Talk's discography, some of their stuff has been recently reissued on vinyl, and I just didn't buy it price-wise, things like that. But this one was on my watch list on Amazon, and it dropped to I think I got this album for $13. The reason being, well, I don't want to take it out of the thing, but the reason being is it's all bent. It's got a bend here. So it was one of those ones where it was damaged, bent here. So the cover has seen better days. It's a double album. Everything about the records and everything are perfect, but it's just the cover is a little dinged. So I thought, I'm going to jump on this for $13. So I grabbed this. 1992. This is when they did their cover of Jesus Is Just Alright by the Doobie Brothers, or by whoever the original person was. So I remember back in the day, we used to love this album. They had a video and stuff like that. So the other one from 1992 was one that I almost showed in a contest or a thread the other day, and I may still do it. So it was on my mind when I realized it was 92. I wanted to bring it up. Mortal Lucis. Mortal is in this particular range was definitely more of an industrial, a lot of samples, a lot of electronics, and this album, I still love this album to death. I'm so glad they reissued this on vinyl a handful of years ago. Retroactive did that. It was released on a record and a single because, of course, back when this came out on CD, it was longer than a typical record. But this has, what was funny is there's so many samples on here from movies and things like that that back in the day I wasn't as familiar with. There was one Painkiller song with a lot of samples of Star Trek. And I knew that. Big Star Trek fan, so I knew that. But there was a lot of other clips you hear on the songs over and over that I wasn't as familiar with where they came from. And then over the years, since 92, you stumble across those movies and you're like, oh, wait a minute, hey, that's from the Mortal album. So then I started picking up a lot of the samples on here. So, but just great stuff. I loved everything about this album. And so, yeah, very pivotal to me in 1992. Played it all the time. So that's it. 72, 82, 92. Check out the contest below. Jump on it. It may, or he hasn't pulled a name yet, so I'm just assuming it's still going. I'll be back with some more later. Rock on and rock hard.